Hello, and welcome to this video on Dynamics 365 Business Central. In this video, we're going to take a look at the Financials module in Business Central. From the Business Central homepage, I want to hit the drop-down menu for the Finance module, and we'll start by talking about the chart of accounts. In Business Central, when you design your chart of accounts, you're going to have a single account value, main account number, or the natural account number. Those accounts will hold posting balances, and you can see that we have a variety of those set up here in my chart: checking, savings, etc. We also, though, create the structure of the Business Central financial statements when we design the chart. So you can see that account 10,000 is the balance sheet, and it's just a heading row. It will never hold a balance. Account 10,001 begins the assets portion of the balance sheet, and its row type is designated as a begin total. And then finally, down at account 10,990, we have an end total row that allows me to have the sum of all of my assets on the balance sheet. That's a range of accounts from 10,001 through 10,990. If I add any additional accounts within this range that hold posting balances, they would automatically then be included within that range of the balance sheet. And if I scroll down to the bottom, I'll go past the liabilities, the equity, income, expenses. Eventually I get all the way down to the bottom, and I have a live net income row. These are system to date values, and I can drill back on any of the balance amounts and see all the general ledger transactions that make up that particular balance. So if I go back into, for example, maybe my accounts receivable, here I get a list of all the activity within the accounts receivable account 10,400, and I can then do a quick sort, a quick filter. Maybe I'm only looking for activity that occurred in March of 2023. So I have a filtered view that allows me to take a look at that. I can close that views panel and get a little more screen real estate, and now I can see more of the columns that I have available inside my list. Now from here I could do a quick search and say that I'm looking for a particular value, etc. Or maybe that's all of the activity or the investigation that was necessary. If I need to do some additional analysis with this, I do have the option to take this and say I want to open this out in Excel so that I can create a pivot table or a chart, graph, a report of some kind, whatever I might be looking to do with that out in the world of Excel. I'll hit the back arrow. We'll go back to that view of the chart. As I mentioned, the chart is just a single segment, the main account number or the natural account number. To provide more information or more detail about your activities and your transactions, we supplement the chart of accounts with the use of dimensions. You define what dimensions you want to track, what's relevant to your company or to your industry, and then within that, I'm going to create a series of values. Those values will be used during transaction entry so that I can be more specific about where to book this particular transaction. As an example, if I come over here to the department view, click on the dimension drop-down and select dimension values, I now see a list of all of those department codes that I have inside my system. And I only have 4 departments, and they're laid out in a very straightforward, simple fashion. You can be a little more sophisticated within your dimensions. If I look at a dimension for area, for example, and I look at the values here, as we had on the chart of accounts, I can now include begin total, end total, as well as standard dimension values. This allows me to create a hierarchy or a grouping. That hierarchy or grouping can then be called upon when I run financial statements. So do I want to look at just Europe North, or all of Europe North, or all of my areas together, or just a single area? Whatever might be appropriate for that particular need or that investigation. So between dimensions and the chart of accounts, I now have enough flexibility to accurately process and analyze all the transactions and activities. I want now to take a look at the financial reporting setup. This is where I create the formats of the various financial statements that I want to work with. And I can just pull up one of those real quickly, and we'll take a look. So within the income statement setup, I'll specify which accounts I want to include. I'll specify whether I want to look in summary or in detail. You can create multiple versions of these financial reporting setups. I might have one that's a summarized statement, another that's in full detail, maybe a third that's presented, sorted, and filtered based upon the areas or the departments. When it comes time to run my financial statements, I will need to specify which of these formats I want to use to run that particular statement. After the chart's been built, the dimensions are set up, and the account formats are in place, we're ready to talk about some of the other functions in the finance module. We have GL level budgeting. The GL budgets allow me to anticipate what I'm going to have for changes in balance sheet items, revenue forecasts, expense forecasts, etc. I will define how I want to have my budget matrix laid out. In this case, I'm showing my lines as the account numbers and my columns as periods, but I can choose to view that in a different form or fashion if I need to. It's still the same budget. This is just how it's going to be presented and viewed by the user. I also, of course, have tools that allow me to work inside Excel, either individually or as part of a collaborative effort. So I can export this budget out to Excel, make my changes, gather the input from colleagues or department managers, and when it's been completed, I can then import that back from Excel into Business Central. Business Central allows you to have multiple budgets covering the same periods of time, so a best case scenario, a worst case scenario, and maybe a preferred or average based on last year or something. We'll go back to that same drop-down menu. In addition to the GL budgets, we also have sales and purchasing budgets, where I could be a little more specific in my budgeting. On the purchasing side, I might break out a particular expense type or expense account and reflect there all the different vendors that I will be procuring services or materials or something from. And then take the total of that purchasing budget, roll that up, and use that as the basis for my line entry in the GL budget itself. Finally, in the finance module, I want to talk about two additional capabilities that can provide some more visibility for you and some efficiencies. We have statistical accounts that hold non-dollar denominated or non-currency denominated values, total head count in a department, or square footage that's being rented or being used by an activity. Those statistical accounts can then be used to generate things like revenue per employee or costs per employee for a particular area, a particular function. And finally, allocation accounts allow the process of data entry, transaction entry, to be simplified. I'm going to then take whatever posts into that initial account, and through either a set percentage allocation or using the statistical accounts we just talked about, I can now spread that expense across multiple GL accounts and have Business Central do the calculation and the allocation spread for me automatically. That concludes this video on Dynamics 365 Business Central and the Finance module. Thanks for watching.